So back to Sylvester's work. Elijah built a house. It was called the Old Castle. His son Daniel settled on the flats down the river, the present day Bentley place near this location. Lewis Brown, a son-in-law, and Ephraim Parks had another house near that of Elijah, above the old castle, a double-logged home. These were the first homes in South Glens Falls, reportedly, and perhaps in the town. In 1775, as the American Revolution was coming to Lexington and Concord, right after the battles of Lexington and Concord down there, and as the Americans, blood were stirring in the streets, and the patriot cause was being furthered throughout the land. And at the same time, the Colonel Ethan Allen was at the gates of Ticonderoga, and in the name of Continental Congress and God. Daniel Parks gathered soon after. Daniel Garst gathered a few neighbors from Fort Edward, and without presence of order from Congress or anybody else, including Colonel Allen, pushed through the woods 9 miles, demanding to receive the keys of Fort George. Once again, we've done the documentary on Fort George. You can go back and look at that, and there's going to be some names here going to come up here regarding that. They're going to sound very familiar here momentarily. This was the tradition of the Parks family, and it is well understood and sustained that the fact that Daniel Parks on his tombstone was a part of this event. Who died in 1818, there is the following inscription on his headstone. He was a man that took the keys from a British officer on Lake George in 1775. This fact that Daniel's life must have been authenticated 60 years later. It is true the capture of the fort has passed into history as an act of Colonel Bernard Romans, and he very possibly reached that point 2 or 3 days later, as a military officer under the authority of Congress assumed charge of the fort. Ethan Allen's forces soon after seized Ticonderoga, or came to Ticonderoga May 10th, 1775. Colonel Romans is reported at the fort on July, and soon after left for Ticonderoga. Colonel Romans, we talked about Colonel Romans at length at Fort George in the Fort George documentary, so you can refer back to that documentary for that information. And I will be including some comprehensive sources regarding his involvement. Jacob Bitley, from the account of Mr. Bitley, then a police officer in the village of Glens Falls. He had learned that his grandfather had his establishment nearby. He settled in Moreau before the Revolution. His farm was at the present Hillcock Place on the river. During the most dangerous times of Burgoyne's campaign in the summer of 1777, they left their home for 7 days, then returned to find their house burned, and were obliged to erect a temporary shelter to get through the following winter under circumstances of great difficulty and hardship. As you can imagine, war was present, lack of food was present, the local Native Indians, having their land pretty much stolen from them and taken from them by the British and some French too during that time period, were very angered and obviously lashed out in their anger. Moving on. Like the other families in this section of the country, they recall many incidents of great struggle. During the war, a girl from a recent settler's family had came to Mr. Bitley to ask for help. He then asked his two boys to prepare a meal for her and some water and catch some fish. While they were doing so, a band of Tories and some native Indians would surprise them and imprison them. Later, soon after, John Bitley, Henry Bitley, Nathan Dury, Lytus Dury, and Ephraim Crehan were carried to Canada and kept for several months. So there's much hostility in this part of the country. Remember, none of these houses were here. Perhaps the Parks-Bentley place, but there's an old house right over there. It looks 18th century. Many of these houses were not here. Most of them were not here. The road would have been a dirt road if there was, or dirt path. Don't even want to call it a road because it was more of a path, a single lane dirt path. From the South Glens Falls town of Moreau Chamber of Commerce. In the early 1790s, John Folsom settled in the village, and by 1806 had established a sawmill, gristmill, cotton mill, all on the south side of the river at the falls. In 1832, the feeder dam was established and was opened to the river and allowed boats to dock and local industries to ship their goods world via the canal system. Their goods included lumber, limestone, marble, grain, and flour. Other products. In the middle of the 1830s, Folsom sold his property. Later, he sold his property to Julius Rice, who opened a stone quarry. Mr. Rice is credited for doing the first surveys of the area, including the layout of many streets in South Glens Falls. He later donated this property for a cemetery, 2 churches, and a school. And our last reference we're going to use today is very interesting. According to William Hay Jr., sometime before 1808, Captain Peter L. Mawney, M-A-W-N-E-Y, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, apologize, from Rhode Island, owned a saloon called the Mawney House in the town of Moreau, New York. Little is known about Mawney except he obtained this title while in the whaling industry, and later relocated to private life on farmland in the Hudson Valley, south of here, probably about an hour and a half. Close by to Mawney's establishment, a saloon, was inhabited by Dr. Billy J. Clark. Clark proceeded to solicit the surrounding citizens for an up-and-coming meeting for the Temperance Society. On April 13, 1808, the first gathering for the Union Temperance Society in Moreau was held at Captain Peter Mawney's building and establishment. During the meeting, Colonel Sidney Berry was elected as chairman. A side note, an observation. Some history on Billy Clark and a Mr. Lebedeus, Lebeus Armstrong, Reverend Armstrong. According to William Hay, and in my opinion, Hay was very critical and nearly defamed, in my opinion, Clark and Armstrong's reputation through his long, unbridled depiction of both gentlemen's personal and private life. Some more history on Peter L. Mawney. I'm going to include some comprehensive sources from the Gaspee Virtual Archives, another historical source. Unfortunately, is from Wikiwand, and then another very comprehensive source. Henry Warren Rugg wrote in 1895 regarding Mr. Mawney, and a relation of his called John Mawney. Once again, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your patience. I apologize for the interruptions today. We would have had this done a little bit sooner. But thank you for your time. Please subscribe and like our channel. Once again, God bless America and God bless your families. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day.